When God's people stopped rebuilding God's temple, God sent prophets to give his people a message. Zechariah was one of the prophets who told the people what God said. This was God's message: "Return to me, and I will return to you." God reminded the people about their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents. The prophets told them to stop sinning, but they did not listen. So God had punished the people for their sin. "Don't be like them," God said. One night, God gave Zechariah some messages through visions. Zechariah saw 8 visions. Each was a different message from God about something that was going to happen. In the first vision, Zechariah saw a man riding on a red horse. Behind him were other horses. They had been patrolling the earth. Everything was calm and quiet, but soon the Lord would punish his enemies. The Lord's house would be rebuilt, and his cities would be blessed again. In the second vision, Zechariah saw 4 horns. These stood for Israel's enemies. Zechariah also saw 4 craftsmen who would defeat those enemies. Next, Zechariah saw a man going out to measure Jerusalem. But the city could not be measured because it was too big for walls. Instead, the Lord would be a wall of fire around it. In the 5th vision, Zechariah saw a solid gold lampstand, which showed how all the Lord's plans would happen because of his Spirit. Then Zechariah saw a flying scroll, which was a curse on everyone who disobeyed God. In the 7th vision, a woman sat inside a basket. She represented the wickedness of those who worship false gods. She was lifted up and taken back to Babylon. In the 8th vision, Zechariah saw 4 chariots, like the horses of the first vision. They would patrol the earth. God told Zechariah to collect silver and gold from the people. "Use the gold and silver to make crowns," he said, "and place them on the head of Joshua, the high priest." Joshua's crowns meant that a special king was coming to bring peace for everyone. "Look, your king is coming to you. He is righteous and victorious, humble and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey," Zechariah said. God promised to bless his people and punish the rest of the nations for their sin. One day, everyone will worship the Lord. God was going to help his people and give them a different kind of king. Jesus is the king who came and rode humbly on a donkey, just as Zechariah said. Because Zechariah's prophecy came true in Jesus, we can have hope and forgiveness of sins when we trust in Jesus.
Hey there, I'm Pastor Brian, and it's time for Questions from Kids. Riley from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania asks,
I'm reading the Old Testament, and I've been wondering, why did God wait so long to send Jesus?
That's a great question, Riley. You know, the story today we encounter Zechariah, the prophet, who prophesies about Jesus' coming, but it's like 500 years before it happened. And you just rewind and go farther back, and you think about how long it was between the fall in Eden and when Jesus came. You think about how many families, Abraham, Isaac, and it just goes on and on. And every single generation asked the question you asked. How long is it going to be? Why is God waiting? Why doesn't he send us the one he promised to rescue us from sin? It seems to make sense that the sooner God would have done that, the better. But here's the thing we have to understand. God's timing is perfect. It says in the book of Galatians that God sent Jesus at just the right time, at the perfect time to fulfill his purposes. Now, we can't understand that fully, but actually we can see a little bit of it, because here's the thing. When Jesus came, Rome was ruling the world, and that did a couple things to make the gospel spread really fast. First of all, Rome had pretty much peace throughout the empire, so it was safe to travel. So you think about those first missionaries like Paul, who could travel around the Roman Empire spreading the gospel with new people because of Rome that had done that. Had Jesus come earlier, that might not have happened. We also know that the Romans had one system of government that again made things safer. So there were many good reasons for God to give Jesus at just that time. But even if we don't quite understand the reasons, again, we trust that God's timing is always perfect. We encounter this in our lives, don't we? There may be times that you're waiting for something, you're waiting for God to answer a prayer, and you're wondering, why hasn't God done it? It makes total sense to me that He would answer this prayer already. But we remember that God's timing is perfect, and we trust in that. He sent Jesus at just the right time. He answers our prayers at just the right time. So here's a question for you to think about. How could waiting for something be better than getting it right away?